According to the Everglades Foundation's article, The Everglades, Quick Facts, 1 out of every 3 Floridians, around 7 billion, rely on the Everglades as his main water source. I not only rely on the Everglades as a main water source, but also as a source of great inspiration. My father grew up in Chokoloskee, which is near Everglades City, with his parents, who are both forest rangers. They taught him to appreciate and love the Everglades just as he taught me. Although I appreciate their stories, I like to make my own by taking frequent trips to the Everglades throughout the year. In your audience analysis survey, 11 of you said you lived in Fort Myers, 4 in Cape Coral, and 1 in Naples. These cities are located in counties that are considered to be part of the huge, slow-moving river that is the Everglades. After listening to my speech, I hope you guys will be able to explain why the Everglades is important to Florida, as well as you as its inhabitants. First, I want to talk about Everglades as a water source. Second, as a home to many endangered and threatened species. And last, as a refuge for Native Americans who are trying to keep their culture alive. Lake Okeechobee is the Everglades' main water source. In the past, the flow was natural and uncontrolled, but currently there's use of artificial engineering. Artificial engineering is just the use of man-made structures to affect the natural occurrences. In the 1920s, there were 2 hurricanes that hit Florida and caused massive flooding that killed over 2,500 people. This statistic is from the Everglades Handbook, Understanding the Ecosystem, the 3rd edition by Thomas Lodge. This was the flow before, flowed from down the Kissimmee River into Lake Okeechobee, which would overflow and flood and cause flooding all through here. Now, use of canals and the Herbert Hoover Dike to control the flow, and it makes it into like cataracts. Next, let's talk about the native plants and animals that are being killed off and that are now endangered and threatened. Native plants are normally choked out by invasive species of other plants that have been planted by humans. The first of these is the Australian Melaleuca. The Australian Melaleuca was planted in the Everglades not only as a source of lumber, but also as a way to dry up the extra stagnant water. Next is the Australian pine. The Australian pine is very frequently found around large bodies of water, such as on beaches, near lakes, etc. And both of these plants, or these trees, take up the nutrients from the soil and are drying up the natural water that's there that the native species of plants live off of. Next, let's talk about the animals that are endangered. Most animals are endangered because of human progress within the Everglades. First, panthers. Florida panthers, according to Defenders of Wildlife, there are less than 160 Florida panthers left in the wild. Most have lost their habitat to highway systems and buildings and other man-made structures. Next, let's talk about the Florida alligators. Recently, they have come to be, there's a higher number of alligators within the Everglades, but before, due to high death through hunting and stuff. They were hunted near extinction, and they were unchecked, and so they have now put laws and regulations in order so that hunters cannot just go out to the Everglades and kill them, and they can only kill them up to a certain size. This picture my dad actually took in the Everglades. Yeah. So last, I would like to talk, now that we've talked about the water and the plants and animals, let's talk about the inhabitants within the Everglades. The Everglades is a home to a very, well, nowadays it's a very large population of Seminole Indians that like to, they interact with the world around them, but not, they haven't become assimilated with it. In the 1900s, some of the Indian tribes assimilated into the white man's world, and others believed that they should stay apart, that their culture was pure, and that by interacting with white settlers, that they were becoming dirty, they were becoming tainted by this, and they would then be shunned. They needed to keep the wild spirit of their ancestors alive, and by interacting with those other settlers, that they were killing it. According to Tosh Brown, in his autobiography, Life in the Everglades, he worked very closely with the Seminoles, as well as his father and his mother. And they even, he was talking about an Indian that, I don't remember his name right now, but he actually, as soon, they were going down hunting alligators illegally, and they found an Indian's hideout. He had been excommunicated from his tribe and was living on his own, but he had interacted with the white man once, and that had destroyed his tribal family, so he was excommunicated. And so he was living on his own, and every time he found white settlers, like if they had gone within, a mile radius of him, he had to move his campsite. And he said that there was a belief that the white man polluted the land, and that they would pollute the lifestyle of the Native Americans, and it needed to stay pure and untainted. This is a recent, well, semi-recent picture of Seminole Indians doing a cultural dance. In conclusion, that you have come to appreciate the Everglades and how they are used as a main water source, as a refuge for Native Americans, and as a home to endangered and threatened species. I sincerely hope that you have come to appreciate the world that you live in, and to see the beauty and prestige